I was working doing some admin work at a table while one of the volunteers, Marlene, was working with a woman. And this woman was just sobbing as she told her story, and she was just crying and crying, and she would break down. And meanwhile, her little 4-year-old daughter was hanging on her side, and she would run around the chair, and she would stick her head up at me, and she would go, or something like that. And I've always liked kids, and I couldn't help, so I'd sort of make faces back at her, and this went back and forth for a while, and it seemed like a nice way to keep the child happy as her mother was engaged in a very intense experience. And so it came to an end, and I went over and I just told Marlene that I thought it was an amazing job that she had done, and I'd seen her hug the woman, and I'd seen her comfort her, and I remember at one point she held her hand and she said, "This is why you're doing it, it's for your child and it's for you." And Marlene looked at me and she said, that child was the product of a rape. And that kind of sums up Dilley and the people who were there who were detained unjustly. There were so many stories, I can't even begin to go in them all because there's so many different horrible forms that the gang culture and the culture of misogyny and of viewing women as property take, that I couldn't even go through all of them on a video like this. The other major piece of the experience, which was extremely disconcerting, was I kept thinking of Hannah Arendt's phrase in her book about the banality of evil. And you have all of this, you have these women with these horrible stories and these incredibly compelling, for lack of a better word, asylum claims. And then surrounded by this completely banal environment of lower middle income workers who are closely drilled on what is acceptable and what is not acceptable, rules everywhere you turn, none of the doors open without pushing a button, a metal detector that goes off every single time that you walk through it, but you still have to walk through it to get wanded down for some reason. And not so much a sense of active evil or oppression or mistreatment. In fact, many of the detainees said that while they were unhappy there, they weren't suffering from abuses in the center itself, just disinterest. And that was extremely disconcerting, and that, I think, says as much about the system that we've set up in the US as anything else.